Hello, lovely beings. I'm JJ Rose. I have a very exciting episode for you today. I am going to discuss the science with spirituality. I wanted to take my time with this episode and make sure that I had enough other YouTubes out that would kind of explain like the baseline of what I do energetically and my recommendations, and have enough time to kind of talk to enough of you to figure out what questions you had. Like, where are we at in the world with an understanding scientifically of all the spiritual stuff, or for some people, they call it the woo. So, I wanted to take time to really go through a lot of the major questions that I get, but kind of start from the top. And I'm not going to get too technical. I'm going to do just enough so that I can give you kind of a baseline understanding of where to go in the description of this episode. I am also going to have links to a lot of the stuff that I was able to find online that are pretty easy reads. There's one fantastic and amazing article that I found by a whole conglomerate of doctors, actually, which was pretty cool. So let's get into it. Okay, in general, human beings, we're alive. Yay. Okay. And you're probably wondering, where am I going with that? The reason why I'm bringing that up is because a lot of people don't understand that within all of our physical bodies, we have a whole electrical system. So I'm not sure if you've ever heard the term before, fire hands. It typically means someone who, like, they can turn on a light switch and they short out the whole wall. Or they go to turn a lamp on and the light bulb explodes or just burns out. They cause shorts in wires, electrical switches. I've seen them blow out chargers. I've seen them blow out entire outlets before. And I've seen them literally burn computers to the point where the computer's just done. It's fried. Typically, these people don't wear watches. Usually, if they get a watch, it'll last a day or two. The reason why is because these people are ungrounded. And yes, this is an electrical term. I am talking about electrically ungrounded. And we're also going to talk about, just being grounded in general. But the word grounded is there as an electrical term primarily. So grounding your electrical system is critical because it protects both the building as well as the equipment from high voltage, meaning from electrical surges. When you have a conductive surface like metal that's not grounded and it becomes electrically energized, it carries voltage, which basically travels as quickly as it can to the next thing that it can go to. So for instance, if there's water, like when we have an electrical wire down, they say don't get near it, don't go grab it. Okay, great, it looks like it's got rubber on the outside, but don't go pick that up because it's a live wire. God forbid if there's water on the ground and that live wire connects with the water, water is a conduit for electricity, so therefore, if you step into that puddle, you're going to get fried. Very, very scary work that our first responders do during storms, in which we have electrical wires just basically down and arcing all over the place, especially if there's water on the ground or in the air. That is a very tough job, and I thank all of them very, very much, as well as all of our electrical people who work out there. That being said, we ourselves, our physical bodies, have an electrical system. Not sure if you guys are old enough to remember the old ancient, I'm really dating myself now, the old trick where you would hold like a potato and then it would turn on a light bulb. Or in some cases, they would have actually people sit there and like walk in place and then hold something, and then eventually like the light bulb would light up. That's because we again have electrical systems running through our body. It's what balances our brain. It's getting our brain to send messages all over the body so we can walk, talk, move our hands, which I'm doing a lot right now. No one can see that, but I just thought you needed that mental image. So energy running through our bodies, again, this is not a new concept. Doctors have known about this for years. Scientists have known about this. But also within the spiritual community and religions have known this. Whether they called it prana, chi, energy, whatever words you want to use for it, we can go through umpteen different languages. But it all means the same thing. So there is a very ancient knowledge that our bodies have an electrical system. And therefore, part of this electrical system requires grounding. Another word for grounding is earthing. I had to look this up because a lot of people nowadays are calling things differently than what I know them as. So grounding means that you are either touching raw bare earth, meaning bare feet in the grass, bum in the grass, or bare feet on dirt. You are touching actual earth with your physical body, with nothing impeding it. It also, for me, I could be on the 15th floor of a building and I can energetically ground. Basically, what it means is that I'm tapping into the earth energy. And that keeps my electrical system running with my body, which is on this planet and therefore tied to earth, in a nice grounded state. In order to properly ground, you need to be in your body. A lot of you that I've worked with, I've told you, hey, in order to do this, I'm going to have to shove you in your body, because typically spiritual people, we don't like to be in our bodies. We want to be out and about. We know that we're spirit having a human experience, and there's all this fun stuff to look at when we're out and about of our bodies, but then we have to get in these bodies and they're a little confining, right? I get it. I go through it myself, but it is important to be in your physical body and check in at least 3 times a day, if not more. There are a couple different reasons for this, of course, for grounding purposes, but also just to make sure that you're keeping a good eye on your physical vessel and making sure that you're addressing anything that's going on. If you are finding that you're clumsier than normal, you're tripping over things or you're walking into things, definitely a good time to get in your body, definitely ground and just take a peek at what's going on. Make sure that it's just maybe you're a little klutzy or you're having an off day, and make sure that it's not something else. So the important thing is you're in your body, you're grounding, and then you're also having universal energy, i.e. your rod to God, and then you're anchoring up towards spirit, God, creator, universe, whatever you want to call it. You have that universal energy running down through you, and you've got earth energy running up through your legs, through you, and both are kind of going in different directions, but it's always moving. You don't want stagnant energy. When we have stagnant energy, that's when we get blockages. Blockages can be physical manifestations of energy that's blocked. That's usually when they've been blocked for a good long while. Typically they come out as spiritual energy blockages, thought blockages, and or emotional blockages. Those are usually just a pile up on aisle 2 of energy, and it needs to be moved. Now, I do not condone doing chakra clearings on yourself or anyone else unless you have been properly trained. I have seen people do these without proper training and they go terribly, terribly wrong. You also need to make sure that you have an energy worker there and present, if not yourself, that can fully run energy through your entire body and make sure that everything is running and is properly where it needs to be. You don't just open up a chakra and then let it just run rampant, because if you turn one faucet on but 2 more are turned off, you're going to create pressure, and then you're going to have a whole energy imbalance, and there's a whole litany of things that can go wrong that I've seen go wrong, so please do not advise doing that. If you are cognizant that you have energy blockages within yourself, you're not able to resolve them by doing just bubbling and clearing, then I definitely recommend that you talk to maybe like a Reiki or an energy practitioner. If you have someone local and that works for you, that's wonderful. If it's something you want to come to me for, again, I usually try to teach you guys how to do it yourselves first. Unless we need to set something up where I have to get involved and do energy work. Usually for smaller stuff though, I will tell you, like, this is something you can take care of yourself, and or you might want to go seek, do a yoga class or go see a Reiki practitioner. Trust your gut. Your gut is there telling you if the vibe is right, great. If the vibe is off, like if you're going to go have a massage and the person comes out and automatically like you're not with their vibe, ask for somebody else, cancel the appointment, make an excuse. I don't know, say that you're going to throw up or something. Do not let someone put physical hands on you that you feel that their energy is off. Your electrical system is basically going to be touched by their electrical system, and you're going to end up taking on some of their stuff. And they could really, really mess you up if their vibe isn't right. Unfortunately, I saw it happen before, and it took about 2.5 weeks to bleep what this massage person had bleeped up in this poor person. It was pretty awful. And again, the more energy sensitive you are, and to be perfectly honest, if you found me and you're listening to me, you're probably pretty energy sensitive. Just be very, very mindful of things like that. Even with people that you touch, I personally don't like crowds for a multitude of reasons, but even if I have to be in a space, I try to walk as far away from people as I can so I'm not getting touched by strangers. Not only because, ew, but also because energetically, even though I'm firmly bubbled and all of that, I don't want to have to fight the currents. Now, to the super cool part. So as I was looking up grounding and all the other words, i.e. earthing, that people are calling it, I found this amazing article. And again, I'm going to have it in the description. It will be the #1 article there. And I will even label it grounding article. But it was done by a conglomerate of scientists and doctors. And here's a couple of things that they said about doing physical grounding. Now, physical grounding means putting your bare feet, bare hands, bare bum, whatever it is, directly on the earth, meaning grass, dirt, sand, whatever it is. So to quote the article, earthing simply means reconnecting the conductive human body to the earth's natural and subtle surface electrical charge, an effortless lifestyle activity that systematically influences the basic bioelectrical function of the body. Doing so surprisingly stabilizes the physiology, reduces inflammation, pain, stress, improves sleep, blood flow, lymphatic and venous return to the heart, which means blood flow basically, and produces a greater well-being. Some other stuff that I had found is grounding appears to improve sleep, normalize the day and night cortisol rhythm. If you have any issues with stress, trust me, you've got some cortisol stuff going on. It can help reduce pain, reduce stress. The huge one for me is it shifts the autonomic nervous system from the sympathetic down towards the parasympathetic, and probably butcher that first word, but I said what I said. So, sympathetic to parasympathetic. This is our fight or flight. Okay? So when you're super stressed, when you're constantly in go, go, go mode, you are basically in the sympathetic system, meaning it's all engines on, right? Like you're steamrolling through and you're basically in fight or flight. When you switch over to the parasympathetic, that's when your body is able to actually relax, calm down. People with PTSD, this is extremely important for, because PTSD actually does something to the brain where it flips it into fight or flight almost on a constant basis. People with anxiety disorders, as well as a whole litany of other things that I am not privy to talk about. That being said, other things that grounding also helps, it increases the heart rate variability. This is important for anyone who has blood clot issues or anyone who has potential issues with irregular heartbeats. It speeds up wound healing and reduces blood viscosity. Again, back to people with hemorrhaging issues and or blood clot issues. So the reason I bring all this up is, again, this shows to go ya that When you understand that we have an electrical system with our body, and by doing something so simple as just grounding your body to the physical earth, whether it's 5 minutes or 20 minutes a day, can cause all of these verified by doctors and scientists wonderful improvements within your body. And let me tell you, if you're energy sensitive at all, which most of us are, you're probably in need of some good grounding time. Some even cooler stuff in this particular article is about people who are doing grounding or earthing on a very regular basis, meaning every day, 5 to 20 minutes a day, are reporting less pain, better moods, and they look younger and healthier. Which, okay, I get it, like vanity, but at the same time, couldn't we all take a little dose of looking and feeling healthier and younger? That's awesome. One part of the article I thought was really, really important. It said, just as vitamin D in our body is produced by energy and frequencies generated from the sun, which is 93 million miles away, the earth right under our feet provides a unique energy and frequency that directly influences our bodies. Earthing restores a primordial electric connection to the earth lost over time because of human lifestyle, i.e. we wear shoes. Earthing appears to correct what we call an electron deficiency syndrome. I'm going to talk about that too. An overlooked and likely significant cause of multiple health disorders. So again, electrical conduits working in proper fashion are extremely important. Okay, so by now you're thinking, I want to stop this. I want to run outside, put my feet in the earth. Please do it. Stop this. Go outside. Put your feet in the earth. It feels wonderful. But I do declare we have more to go. All right. So as I'm talking about the electrical conduits of our body and with the electron deficiency disorder, I thought it would be a great time to talk about positive and negative ions. Again, I'm going to give you a brief overview. I'm not a science teacher by any means, but when you're talking about positive and negative ions, to put it simply, positive ions are molecules that have lost one or more electrons, whereas negative ions are actually oxygen atoms with an extra negatively charged electron. What does that mean? It basically means when I say positive ion, it means bad. When I say negative ion, it means good. Like I said, we're going to have to kind of look at things differently. So when you're in a place that has negative ions, you're going to be in a place where the water is charged and alive. It makes you feel calm. It soothes you. You typically feel tired afterwards because you're so relaxed. Yes, negative ions actually relax the physical body. The reason for this has to do with electrical pulses in our body and the molecules, and I don't want to get that technical with you all, but please feel free to look it up. It's science. It's delightful. The negative ions are abundant in nature, especially around waterfalls, on the ocean surf, at the beach, widespread in mountains and forests. Again, if the water is charged and alive. In order for water to be charged and alive, it means that it is constantly running, and it is running in an S pattern formation. You will always see with like streams and lakes, streams and creeks and rivers, that they usually almost always have like an S pattern to them. They're never really like just one straight line. That's usually a man-built canal. They're almost always kind of moving in an S formation. Even if you go to the beach and you watch the waves don't come straight up and down. They almost come in kind of at an angle, and they are never straight in and out. They're always coming in kind of at an angle, almost like a C, and then they go out in another direction, or they come in and out that way, but you'll see when the next wave comes, it'll come in a different way. Again, in a C or an S formation. The reason for that keeps the water charged and alive. As you can tell, I've done a couple different things with water. I know a lot about water being alive and being charged, and I'm really excited about it, but at the same time, I'm not going to bore you with all of that. But it is something to be aware of. When you have water sitting in a water bottle for days or possibly years, that's great. We all need water to live, but it is not living water. And so if anyone is trying to sell you a bottle of water and tell you that it's living, it's not if it's been dormant for more than 5 days. Yes, you got that right. 5 days. If the water's been sitting without any movement for 5 days, it's dead. In order to realive the water, you would have to put it through a process where it's moving in an S formation, and it's basically going around and around through some sort of natural earth touching thing, whether it's rocks or like a little waterfall or something like that. And then at that point, you probably don't want to be drinking that because then it's got the boogie bugs in it. That being said, when you're at a place in which there's natural water, forest, mountain, lake, river, stream, ocean, that spray, that mist, that is being absorbed by your body. Your skin is actually your biggest organ. So get a little skin exposed. Let that water on in. Get all those negative ions in there. Really recharge and rebalance your body, especially if you've been dealing with stress, anxiety, or if you're feeling really, really nervous. This is a wonderful way for you to just totally relax yourself if you can take a little trip. Highly recommend. For every negative, there is a positive. For every positive, there is a negative. So let's talk about positive ions. Positive ions are the opposite. They are typically in places with a very arid and dry landscape. Many places that have extreme positive ion concentrations actually feel eerie. They feel off. They feel negative. They can cause depression, anxiety, aggression, and agitation. In order to exist in one of these locations and probably not go insane or hurt yourself or somebody else, you're going to have to put some sort of water situation in there in which you're recharging the location with some negative ions. So there was a book, I don't even think it was actually published, but it was being worked on years upon years ago. And I knew the person who was editing this book. And it was talking about a clan of Native people in the area. And this clan had been around for, ever. And they had always lived in this one area. And it was by water. It was beautifully charged with negative ions. It was lovely. The clan itself was actually known for being extremely peaceful and extremely kind. That's what they were known for. They end up getting displaced. Unfortunately, it's history. It's happened. And they basically get moved to this location, which is kind of arid and dry. It's away from running water. It's going to be a little bit of a trek in order for them to live the way that they weren't used to living, but they took what they could got at the time. So within a month of living in this new environment, the clan went from being this very peaceful, very loving, very kind group of people to all of a sudden they had aggression, depression, their trigger warning, suicide rate was extremely high. And they weren't even like warring with other people. They were warring within themselves. And okay, it's very easy to take a look at that and say, okay, well, they literally just got uprooted from where they've always been and then put in this new landscape, and life became harder because they're not by running water and by all the things that they were used to. Yes, I get it. But this same location ended up, they moved those peoples from there to another location away from this very positive ion charged location. They end up moving what was left of the clan to another location. And within 3 days, all of the aggression, all of the suicides, and all of the depression completely stopped and completely reversed. And I'm telling you, they did not move them back to their original location. They moved them again somewhere else. but it was a much more balanced place ionically. The reason I bring this up is because it's very easy to say, oh, well, you uprooted them and of course they were upset. That wasn't it. It's the location. The location ended up becoming what is a mental health facility. And unfortunately, it is one of the worst mental health facilities to be in. It has the highest numbers of murders, attacks, and suicides in the entire country in which it's located. I'm not going to name it, but yeah, I'm sure you guys can use Google. Why am I telling you all this? Why is this important? It's important so that you understand positive and negative ions. And if you're in a highly stressed situation, if you live in a very arid landscape, there are little things that you can do. Get yourself like a little running water fountain or something like that. Mist the air. Get some running water in the location so you can start changing those positive ions and bringing in more negative ions so that the place isn't so hostile. Typically places, I've been to a few. I've been to that mental health facility once. I drove by it. I was close enough, we'll put it that way. And I can tell you, you feel it in the area, even driving by it. And it's very weird because 1.5 miles away from it actually is a body of water. So it completely changes. But this little place, for whatever reason, has been studied, and it's just full of positive ions and great place to put a mental health facility. Okay. So now we know about positive and negative ions. We understand that our bodies are electrical circuits and conduits. So we're moving right along. Electrolytes. Why is it so important for you to eat your vitamins and eat properly? And yes, I am a little bit of a mother hen, but I would say 85% of everyone who reaches out to me that I'm doing some sort of clean read on, all of you guys are coming back with some sort of vitamin issue. Here's the reason why vitamins are so important. Yeah, okay, we hear that they're important and they're good for us, and we're supposed to eat a balanced diet. Depending on what country you're in, I don't know if that's even possible anymore, right? Especially because our soil's been very, very depleted, and therefore we're not getting the same amount of nutrients from our food that we were in years in the past. We also have the pesticide issue. I digress. That's a whole other ball of wax. But the reason why it is important to take vitamin supplements if you're not eating a proper diet, if you're not able to grow your own food and make sure that you're tilling the soil and letting your land go fallow every season for at least one season, which to let your land go fallow basically means that you let a whole bunch of weeds grow in it and for an entire season, and then you till them back into the earth so that the earth is replenishing itself, i.e. you're giving the land a break so it can take a moment and breathe and replenish itself with all the nutrients and good stuffs. You're not just throwing weed killer on everything and throwing another crop back in. So electrolytes, vitamins, they are important. Not only does your body fluid contain electrolytes and chemicals, which when they dissolve in water produce charged ions, but these ions enable the flow of electrical signals through your body. So if you've ever heard of someone being in the hospital, and usually the doctors are always testing their electrolyte levels, and if they're off, that's when they're giving them fluid, and it usually is fluid and it will have some salt in it. Guess you guys know what's coming next. There's a reason for that. The electrolytes play an important role to the body. They regulate the osmotic pressure within the cells and help maintain the function of the muscle and the nerve cells. If you're having any issue with muscle cramping, or for instance, since it's virus season, if you've been having issues with excessive coughing, typically there is a magnesium and potentially an issue with potassium in the body. Make sure that you're drinking electrolyte water, whether it's Gatorade or Pedialyte or whatever. People don't realize that when you're sick, especially anything involving a fever, you're sweating and you don't even know that you're sweating, especially if you wear, heavy like sweatpants and sweatshirts and blankets. all of that's going directly into the material. So you're not necessarily like feeling the sweat, pouring down your body like you would if you were working out. But what you're not realizing is that all that sweat that's coming out that you're not noticing, you need to therefore replace it. And if you're not drinking something with electrolytes, your electrolyte system can go out. Then you've got a whole electrical problem going on with your body, and it affects everything from the muscles to the nerves to the on and on and on and on and on. So the moral of the story is make sure you've got your electrolytes properly functioning. Make sure that your body is properly functioning. Again, all of this has to do with electrical signals. That's why I'm going back to the science of this whole thing. Our body is a vessel that we need to have working in good order in order to function properly. And since most of us out there are getting sensations and energy work, and we're using our body for either the flow out, flow in, to register in order to get sensations, all of those things your body is picking up and working with you. So if your body's out of whack, you're not going to be picking up on things properly. So you need to treat the vessel same way you would, right? With a car. You're going to make sure that it's got all the proper fluids and oil and all the doodads have been checked and your spark plugs and whatever else. I'm really not a car person. I should not have used that analogy, but I digress. Make sure that your body is working in perfect order. This is why I bring up oftentimes about doing your reality check before thinking everything is spiritual, making sure that you've eaten, you've had enough water, have you slept properly, all the things of checking those off before you go straight into, oh, I'm getting a message from, great grandma, whatever. All right. Can you guess what's coming up next? Salt. Number one question I get asked about probably on a more consistent basis than I ever thought I would in my life. Salt. Why the salt? What kind of salt? What am I doing with the salt? Why is the salt so important? Salt, salt, salt. Why the salt? All right. First off, the salt and spirituality in using salt to remove negative energy or prevent negative entities from arriving or coming in, this is not new. This has been around for all religions, spiritual practices, and peoples going back as far pretty much as the written word we can find. Go on to Google, literally type in, why does salt remove negative energy? I went through 15 pages of different spiritual paths, religions, peoples, cultures on all of the different continents. I was able to find them in all of them, with salt being mentioned. This is not new. If you have not heard about salt within the spiritual community, or it's not something that you've been exposed to before, that's fine. But I'm telling you, I'm bringing back the salt, okay? Here is the reason why the salt. I get this question also, like, why salt? What does salt have to do with anything? Okay, so I'm going to get a little technical for a minute. In chemical terms, salts are ionic compounds. To most people, salt refers to table salt, which is sodium chloride. Sodium chloride forms the ionic bonding of sodium ions and chloride ions. Yay, we're super excited. We're learning. There's one sodium, I don't know how to say that word, cation, which is Na positive, for every chloride anion, which is Cl negative. So the chemical formula for salt is NaCl. Chemical compound of salt is a negative and a positive. Remember, I just talked about this. So they cancel each other out. Therefore, salt is neutral. It is neither negatively charged nor positively charged. Okay? So it's neutral. But because you have a positive and a negative electrical charge, they cancel each other out. That's a good thing. That means we're not getting shocked by salt. Fabulous. Salt. The pH for salt, I know pH is a big thing, but the pH for salt is neutral. It's a firm, guess what number? 7. Yep. pH is at 7 for salt. So, going to get a little more technical with the salt and why I recommend under the bed. So, for the first part, when the salt is under where you sleep, when you sleep, you're in a restful state. That means your body's electrical system is slowed down a little bit, and it's basically just kind of gently coursing through the body, right? Assuming there's no heavy blockages. As it's doing that, the salt is under there and it's got a positive and a negative, and it's basically just sitting there waiting. And whatever electrical discharges are coming out of your body while you're in a restful state, the salt is basically sitting there and it is arresting it. This is why I basically tell you salt absorbs negativity. If you wanted all the scientific terms, I'm explaining it as clearly as I can without totally going off on chemical compounds and probably making some people laugh and other people cross their eyes and want to go to sleep. Now, the other question I get a lot is why the salt scrubs, why the salt showers, why the salt baths for some of you. Some of you, I've told you need to put salt on the floor of the shower. Just step on it while you're showering. Some of you I've actually told make salt shampoo. You need to put it within your hair. For some of you, you discharge the majority of your electrical impulses and your energy through your feet. Some of you, you do a lot of that through the top of your head. The majority of you, while you're sleeping, when you have that salt, especially where your head lays, the majority of the electrical stuff happening in your body while you're sleeping in a restful state is in your head. So therefore, having the salt at the ready to basically pick off whatever electrical charges are coming off of your brain area, your head area, that's why you have the salt there. Because it's basically sitting there open, like it's got a little catcher's glove on, and it's ready to pick up whatever balls you're throwing at it, i.e. energy balls. Hey, isn't learning fun? Oh, right. Doing this by myself is awesome, by the way. I digress. Okay, so back to salt scrubs, salt showers, salt baths for some of you. So there's this fabulous article written by the USGS, which is the United States Geological Survey. I was a little surprised to find this on there, but I love it. So I'm going to read a little bit, and it's going to explain why the salt. So, likewise, a water molecule is ionic in nature, but the bond is called a covalent, with two hydrogen atoms both situating themselves with their positive charge on one side of the oxygen atom, which has a negative charge. When the salt is mixed with water, the salt dissolves and the covalent bonds of the water are stronger than the ionic bonds of the salt molecules, i.e., this is why salt basically dissolves into water and we have salt water. Cool. Now we know salt dissolves into water. Thanks, Brainiac. Could have figured that out myself. You're welcome, by the way. So the positively charged side of the water molecule are attracted to the negatively charged chloron ions within the salt. So what ends up happening is when the salt and water get together, basically a tug of war ensues with the water molecules winning the match. Why is this important in layman's terms? Because as you put that salt on your body and your electrical impulses within your body, because we're all made of electrical, remember, been there, done that, and your largest organ is your skin, which is constantly running electrical through it all the time, the salt is basically picking up any residual energy or helping heal any electrical issues going on within the body and the spiritual body, which of course we all have auras outside of our physical body. And then when the water hits it, it's clearing it immediately away. This is why when you put a salt scrub on, it immediately rinses off instead of sticking, and then you've just got a whole bunch of salt on you like mud. It doesn't do that. But what ends up happening is when the water hits the salt, it's basically breaking up the chemical structure from not only the salt, but also what the salt's taking out of you, and it's washing it away. So for some of you, I've told you salt scrub in the shower. Great, now you understand why, okay? For some of you, salt in the shower under your feet. It's because that's the majority of where your electronic discharges are coming from, as well as how you release your energy through your feet. So you just need it on your feet, walk on it, and the water and the salt will do its thing. Some of you, very rarely, need to do it on your head. Again, this is a whole other issue because we just kind of need to rebalance stuff in there. And I try to make it as comfortable as I can, but don't get it in your eyes, right? Now, there have been cases where I've advised people, hey, take a salt bath. And the reason for this is because you need a good long while for your body to kind of reset. Epsom salts are great. You can throw some regular salt in there as well. But the reason for that is it helps the entire body, which has usually been under a ginormous amount of stress, and your nerves and your muscles are just all kerfuffled, and everything just needs a good once over and a realignment. And therefore, the salt bath, at least 20 minutes, will really, really help get everything in proper working order and just remove it and move it on out. So there, now you know about the salt and why the salt and all the salt stuff. One more thing on the salt. For those of you who are doing any energy work, any healing work, any kind of work in which you are using your hands in between doing work, especially if you're going from one person to the next, or even if it's from one room to the next, a lot of people energetically wise will kind of use their hands as their main focal point to feel whatever is going on. I recommend keeping some salt with you and doing a salt wash on your hands. So basically you're putting some salt in the middle of your palm, you're putting a little bit of water, you're making kind of a paste, rubbing it around, and then just rinsing it off. Again, this is if you're doing healing work, this is if you're doing energy work, whether it's physical contact or remote. Either way, it just helps kind of realign the hands so that imagine like you're washing the windows, if you will, so that everything is working properly and that you're not bringing any energy from whatever place you were just working on to the next place. In short, we are electrical beings, and the neutrality of salt can help balance our energy when we come in close or direct contact with it. Okay, and there's one final thing that I'm going to touch on because I think it's something that it's healthy to have a good amount of skepticism about, but it's kind of cool when you break down the science of it. And a lot of this has been proved not only by regular scientists, but also many governments around the world. So a lot of the questions that I get from complete non-believers, or they say they're non-believers, but they usually have a ton of experience and questions. Why psychics? How do you guys exist? How do you work? And usually the first or second comment you're going to get is, well, you're probably just really, really observant, and you're really able to see micro expressions on people, or you're able to kind of like suss out if this then that from people. And this is why I have you guys do blind reads. So I have you give me permission. I just hop over to you energetically, and then I come back and I give you a little litany. And what I'm finding is in almost every single blind read that I've been doing, there's almost always one super random thing that pops up. And I will tell you, I have no clue why this is popping up. I have absolutely no, understanding of why this is popping up. But like all of a sudden I saw this. And I'm finding out that that is for you. That is some random piece of information that there is literally no way, even if I was like the best super undercover detective in the world, that I would have been able to know that one specific thing, right? And it's usually something weird and kind of like off the beaten track that you wouldn't think about, but it's very specific to you. And I've been seeing this happen over and over and over again. So I'm just bringing that out as a point that it's healthy to have skepticism, but if you're the person that you're dealing with, the psychic or the energy person or seer, whatever they go by, whatever laundry list of talents they have, if they're able to pull out something that is so uniquely you, something that they couldn't have assumed or sussed out or whatever, that there's no way they could have known that. There's no way they could have intuited that or put that together based on what you look like or whatever the situation is or your name. That is showing you that they're valid and they're real. Okay? So going back to energy, I am not going to reinvent the wheel and teach you all about string theory, but string theory basically explains how we are all connected, and it also explains different dimensions. Everything in the universe except energy is made of matter. And so everything in the universe is made of atoms. An atom itself is made up of 3 kinds of particles called subatomic particles: protons, neutrons, and electrons, right? Okay, so if everything is made out of these 3 things, right, since the beginning of time and before then, we'll get to that, then in the Big Bang, when everything was compressed to one tiny little ball and then basically exploded, okay, that means at one point in time, all of us, all of the atoms that make us who we are and everything in between, and us and our lives and the air and the things and the earth and all of it, we were all considered one thing at one time. And then we basically exploded into, a big number of little things. And then those little things came together and became bigger things like humans and elephants and giraffes and a house, right? So if all of those particles, because nothing ever dies, it's only transformed. Therefore, if all the particles in the universe have never died, they've only transformed, this is how some people are able to tap into the memories of those cells, therefore seeing the past, present, and future. Okay? And then you combine that with string theory in the fact that because all cells have memory, right? Okay. All atoms, cells, particles, they all have a memory. And therefore, all of them come together to be you, me, that thing that you're looking at across the room, all that stuff. All of those atoms have a memory. And that memory is the longevity of the entire existence of time. Right? Like since before inception. I keep saying this. Before the Big Bang. Yes, there was a time before time. And this is why I refer to those beings as the old ones. They came from the time before the Big Bang. They survived. They made it through. Basically, they went down to little iotas of cell, and then they reconvened as themselves. They were able to keep that part of themselves because they're that giant of an entity in order to bring themselves back. So they were, they weren't, and then they were again. Okay? Same with all of us. So each one of the atoms and cells in my body has been everything before. And same with your cells. You got to remember, time is not linear, right? So people like me are able to basically tap into that cellular memory. And as a result of that, we're able to read it kind of the same way, you put in a memory stick and you're able to see the data that's on it. It's similar to that. And it's kind of interesting because I just had this conversation last night, but there are some of you who are new to this planet. And you pretty much know who you are, or you've been told who you are. You're very new. Sometimes they'll call you a new soul. You're not. You're a very old soul, just like everybody else. You're just new to this planet. Okay? Which is why there are certain things that you're not able to understand, and concepts that are almost hard for you to grasp because they're very earthly concepts. It simply is because you're not as tethered to this planet as other people who have been here over and over and over again are. And therefore, when you tap into the cellular memory of this world here, it doesn't feel like home. And as a result of it not feeling like home, you're not fully able to grasp why that is, because like you exist, you're a human, you have a life, and all these things. It's this very weird concept, and it's because you came from another time and another thought pattern, and therefore this is not like, consider Earth is not your first language, right? And yet you're sitting here and you're like, okay, I mean, I took a course in this, right? Like, I've been in this world for all these years in this body, and yet this, I'm still having a hard time understanding everything. I can get by for the most part, but it doesn't feel like my language or like my home. And again, that's just because your cellular memory is coming from the places you were at before this, and therefore they're so foreign to this world that it's hard for you to tap into that. I have no clue why I decided to bring that up. It was not on my list of fabulous notes that I made for myself, but that's for whoever needed it. So to kind of recap, everything was one until it became everything, but everything is also connected. So therefore, that's how you're able to get psychics. That's why you're able to get people who are able to see the past, the future, the current. It's because they're able to just tap into the memory of those atoms in order to see, like, the VCR. That's the whole damn I know what a VCR is. In order to see basically the tape play out whatever way it needs to. Some people are getting to the point where they're like, hey, I just found out like there was a VCR and I'm able to look at it. And some of you are old hat at this and you're like, oh yeah, I'm able to rewind the tape for me or for other people or for this or for that. Or even sometimes go forward. Now, I think I've talked about this before. I don't know where, unfortunately, sorry. But there are worlds that everyone looks just like us. Like it's us, but another us, right? And some people currently are calling them different timelines. There are worlds where everything is backwards. There are worlds where things are similar, but like a little bit off. Like some things are different, right? But there are worlds that are completely backwards. And I know that I've talked about this somewhere. I honestly don't remember where though, but I know I've said it publicly somewhere. What was really cool is as I was looking for some of this information, because I wanted to have links and stuff for you guys to click on in order to do your homework on all this, I actually found this really, really cool article written in a scientific journal about them literally spotting a parallel universe that literally everything is going backwards in time. So it literally runs backwards, like Benjamin Button backwards. Like, they start as old and then become young. I thought that was really, really cool and I wanted to share that. So a little recap for anyone whose eyes have glazed over at this point and is like, thank you so much for reminding me of all these science courses that I never wanted to take. You're welcome. To recap, treat your body well. Your body is an electrical conduit. Make sure that you keep it in proper working fashion. Take your vitamins. Make sure that your electrolytes are properly up to speed. Go ground yourself. Get yourself some barren earth to put your feet in or your hands in. Whatever you can. Make sure that you are checking off all the lists and taking care of the vessel that is here because you need it in proper running order. Hopefully I've beat the salt thing to death so everyone understands it at this point, and we're all understand the importance of salt, and we're all saying thank you so much, salt, for being absolutely awesome. And on top of all that, research string theory because that's super fun, things to do in your off time, and understand that we all were one and we still are connected. And this is why There are empaths and people who can feel things, because all we are is a whole bunch jumble of atoms that are put together with cellular memory that goes back and back and back. And, we're not all that different from one another either. And for those of you who are developing and learning on a daily basis, this is awesome. Keep it up. For those of you who have maybe been a little reticent or a little hesitant to start because you're like, oh, this all sounds like a little woo-woo to me, I hope this episode helps you in some way, shape, or form with the scientific aspect of it. I'm sure you have a friend out there who thinks like an engineer brain. This would be perfect for them if they've ever questioned any of the legitimacy of any of this. And you know what? There's also a really fantastic documentary, and it's called Third Eye Spies, that talks about remote viewing as well as psychics and all the government funding that went into that with the United States. Gaia TV is also another fantastic resource. They have tons of different documentaries and shows that talk about a lot of the science along with the spirituality as well. They've done a bang up job of having a lot of that available. I know you do have to get a subscription, but sometimes they have trials, and you might want to check out their website. There might want to be something that you look up individually, or a book idea that you get from it. Regardless, again, in the description of this video, I'm going to have links to some of the different articles that I quoted from and that I think just are super, super cool. And overall, I hope you had fun with this. I had a blast doing this one. I'm sorry if it was really boring for some of you, but I really hope that I was able to answer your questions. And hopefully you guys understand a little bit better how you work. All right, guys, thank you so much again for taking the time to hang out with me. Thank you for all of your love and support. And thank you for being a light in a rather dim world.